Good morning. Okay, we're going to read about another person from our Fantastically Great Women Who Made History book. Last time we looked at Flora Drummond, who grew up in England and Scotland in 1878. Today we're going to learn about a lady who grew up in China around the same time in 1875. So you could, as you're listening, be thinking about the similarities and the differences for women at those times on different continents. So this is who we're reading about today, and this is Qu Jin. Qu Jin was born in China in 1875. The way people lived in China had not changed for generations, and this meant, like most Chinese girls, that Qu Jin was forced to follow many outdated traditions. One of the hardest of these traditions was foot binding. Small feet were considered to be beautiful, so young girls in China had their feet broken and tightly bound to make sure they were as tiny as possible. This meant that every single step could be painful. Bound feet could be as small as 10 centimetres long. So if you have a look at your ruler, 10 centimetres long, that's what their feet were considered to be perfect, that length, and they were broken and they were bound until they were that size. It sounds very painful, doesn't it? Most girls were not well educated, but Qu Jin was from a wealthy family, and her parents allowed her to study the same subject as her brother. The more books she read, the more questions she had about the unfair ways women were treated. Wisdom gave her the words to stand up for change. Bound feet have always been a disgrace, she said. It should not be happening. The power of words. At this time, it was shocking for a woman to speak her mind, but Qu Jin wrote powerful poems, passionate articles, and gave captivating speeches about the struggles that women faced. Shaking off the traditions that held her back, Qu Jin unbounded her feet and, in order to experience the same feeling of freedom as men, began to wear men's clothing. "Do not tell me women are not the stuff of heroes," she said. The power of knowledge. In search of more inspiring wisdom, Qu Jin travelled to Japan to study where women were treated with more respect. Once there, she joined people who believed that the only way to make China a fairer place to live was to get rid of the old-fashioned government that had ruled for centuries, the Qing dynasty. A wise warrior. Qu Jin moved back to China where, in 1906, she took a job at the head of a school. Her job was to secretly prepare students to rebel against the government. She led women in exercise classes, which was something very new, so that they would physically be able to fight. Qu used a traditional Chinese brush pen to write her poems. Here she is preparing her students to fight. A wise warrior. Sorry, I've read that part. Final words of wisdom. In 1907, Qu Jin was warned that the government suspected she was involved in plotting against them. Qu Jin knew that anybody caught plotting faced giving up their life, but she allowed herself to be captured. Wise and brave, she wrote a final poem explaining that by sacrificing her life, she was making the ultimate stand for what she believed in. These actions made her a hero in China and inspired other women to play an active role in the revolution in 1911, which successfully forced out China's Qing dynasty. Afterwards, women were able to live more equally and have more fulfilling lives. Qu Jin always found the right words, and although her life was tragically cut short, her wisdom lives on. So can you imagine what life in China might be like if she'd never spoken out, if she'd never stopped binding her feet, and if she hadn't educated people and helped them to understand the old dated and old-fashioned government was no good for them anymore, perhaps that would still be happening. Perhaps women would still have to bind their feet. So what a fantastic leader she was to her people.